Wisconsin Eye is interviewing candidates for the special election in the 42nd Assembly District. The primary is May 15th. The general election is June 12th. Gene Rubinstein of Pardeeville is an independent candidate. Gene, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Tell us about your qualifications. What have you been doing? Have you held any local office? And why you want to represent the 42nd District, sir?
Fair question. No, I haven't been elected to any official position in government. I've been involved in a number of campaigns through the years. I decided to run because talking to a lot of people in the district, they're very disgruntled with both the Republican and Democratic parties. They feel that if the Democrats put forth an idea, the Republicans shoot it down. If the Republicans put forth an idea, the Democrats shoot it down. They're tired of the partisanship and the party politics. And it seems that the middle class of our district, they're not being represented. I feel that no one party has a monopoly on all the good ideas, and that's why I'm running as an independent. If it's a good idea proposed by the Republicans, then it's a good idea. If it's a good idea proposed by the Democrats, then it's a good idea. We need to see, I think, in our society a lot more bipartisanship effort to solve problems. And that's why I decided to run as an independent. I run a small business. I do what I call hard recycling. I buy things at thrift stores and yard sales and auctions and sell them on eBay. I pay taxes, self-employed taxes. I pay income taxes to both the state and the federal government, and I've been doing that for a number of years. I've had positions in the past in sales, and I've had positions in the past of training and recruiting people. But I think that the basic qualification to be a successful legislator is not only the ability to listen, but also the ability to ask the right questions. And I think I'm very good at asking questions to find out what's the real story. So that's why I'm running.
We don't know yet who's going to control the Assembly, the Republicans or Democrats, but as an independent, would you be able to work with whichever party controls?
Well, it's not a question of control. I think it's a question of who puts out the good ideas. If it's a good idea by the minority or the majority, then it's a good idea, and that's why I'm running as an independent. So I'm not tied to one party or the other's vision. It's what's best for the district, and that's why I'm running as an independent.
What have you learned about the district since you made your decision to run to represent it in the 42nd District, sir?
I think people are very frustrated with their elected officials, not just on a state level, but national level. It seems so many of the legislative initiatives put forth are voted on pretty much along party lines. So there's very little compromise going on. When I was growing up, we were taught that it's the rule of the majority with respect to the minority, and we have not seen the respect to the minority no matter who is in power, whoever controls it. So I think it's time to put more of a balance and look what's best for the people in the district rather than the special interest groups.
What do you consider the number one issue in your campaign?
I think it's a return to civility. I think people are just upset with the behavior of their elected officials. Mm-hmm. They're upset with the continual polarization of the electorate, the polarization of people that are elected, the polarization of media. I describe a lot of things in a bell-shaped curve, and there's people on every extreme, but most of us are in the middle. And I think too often the middle is ignored.
One of the biggest unresolved issues, as you're aware, is how we pay for our highways in the future and construction and maintenance. There's been an impasse in the Capitol. There still is. Mm-hmm. How would you pay for our highways?
Well, highways should not, in my opinion, be a partisan issue. Democrats and Republicans use the roads. Liberals and conservatives use the roads. Our roads are in horrible condition. The problem that we've seen is how to pay for it. The governor has said that he's not going to allow any increase in the gas tax unless there's an offset in some other expenditures within the transportation budget. We all use the roads. We all are going to have to suffer a little bit if we want to see the roads be improved. The gas tax has not been upgraded for a long time. Since it was last upgraded, cars are getting much better mileage, so people are using less gas per miles driven. I think it's going to have to be something that everybody is a little dissatisfied with, a bit of an increase in the gas tax, as well as an increase in cars that like hybrid cars and electric cars for registration fees. We're also seeing huge fleets of buses and trucks that don't use any gas at all. They're using compressed natural gas, so they're not paying anything for gas taxes. So I think we have to look at something to compromise, and I think we all are suffering with the bad roads. We all have to suffer a little bit to fix the bad roads. It's a statewide problem. We need to fix it. Good roads are good for business. They're good for workers. They're good for everybody, except for the car repair stores, shops that have to fix the cars that get hurt in potholes.
Some of the Capitol leaders have expressed a long-term interest in tolling. What's your position on tolling?
I don't like the idea of paying tolls. I don't think anybody likes the inconvenience of stopping or even using the computer programs that have tracked the cars and what they pay. We've seen some problems in other states with how they track cars and bad bills to the driver. Toll roads, if they're going to a private company, I'm very concerned about that, because then that takes away the power of the voters to impact what happens on those roads. And a lot of those leases are 99-year leases, so we're stuck with that lease for many generations. I like the idea of traveling without having to pay roads. Of course, our interstate system under Dwight Eisenhower was a program where there was no tolls. It was able, so people could go freely from one place to another. I don't particularly like the idea of paying tolls, because only those people that use those roads are going to be paying for the roads. We have to spread out the cost to everybody, not just the people using that particular road.
A big issue in the fall elections is going to be the state incentive package for Foxconn. The state share $2.85 billion potentially if they max out on both their development and hiring goals. Would you have supported the Foxconn package, sir?
It's a tough package. Of course, there's a lot of opportunity for jobs with the Foxconn. However, Governor Walker has said we have such low unemployment. What's going to happen, I fear, with Foxconn is that it's going to suck a lot of workers away from small businesses, and some small businesses are going to be hurt by that decision. I don't like the idea, and I think conservatives should rally behind the idea that government should not be paying a private corporation, especially that much money. It works out to about $200,000 per job created. We don't know yet if all those jobs are going to be from people from Wisconsin. We don't even know if all those people are going to be from the United States. So I think the taxpayers paying the bill for a private corporation like that is something that conservatives and liberals, when they look at it, should be a little bit questioning on what it does. Is there opportunity coming in? Absolutely. I heard on the news yesterday that there are going to be pretty good high-paying jobs. But if we're spending $1 million to attract workers to Wisconsin, because right now we don't have enough workers, this will have a drain of workers across the state, and I fear it's going to hurt small businesses.
The debate over school safety has generated, of course, a debate over gun laws. Do Wisconsin's gun laws need to be changed?
Well, do they need to be changed? Yes, but in a lot of different ways they need to be changed. I think it's, I do a lot of yard sales, as I told you, for my business. Mm-hmm. And a person can buy a gun without any background check, without anything, at a yard sale. They could be a convicted felon. They can be a person with mental problems. I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to take guns away. I do feel that we have to be careful of who has the guns. And school safety is just a small part of the gun issue, because people have been massacred not just in schools, but in theaters, at concerts, at churches. So it's not a question of just school safety, it's a question of general safety. Now, as far as the Second Amendment goes, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Most people look at the Second Amendment and only look at the second half of the Second Amendment. But the purpose of the Second Amendment, when it was originally written, because we didn't have a standing army in the United States, was to support a militia. And if a person is willing to give government service to the militia, and they can bring their own guns and use their own ammunition and pay their own food, as was expressed by the Founding Fathers in the Second Amendment, then we have a good Second Amendment. But if we're just concentrating on one half of the Second Amendment, we're not looking at the full reason of why they wrote the Second Amendment.
So should there be should we change the law on background checks to so they're mandatory at some of these private sales?
Well, background checks in and of themselves don't necessarily stop gun violence, because we've seen too many examples of people that would have passed any background check getting guns. They just snapped and they decided to kill people. I think we have to change our way of thinking about guns. Guns are a very important part of Wisconsin hunting and sports. I don't want to take that away. I don't think we should. On the other hand, we have people that have had their gun rights taken away because of a domestic dispute. There should be some way that after a certain period of time, without any problems with the law, they should have their rights reestablished. So there's a lot of things in the gun laws that have to be looked at to make it a more sane policy.
There's a debate over funding of our public schools. Some candidates say the public schools need more money. Others say basically it's working pretty well, and the current budget gave a substantial amount more of state aid. Your position on funding our public schools?
Well, yeah, they gave more money to schools, but that was after they took a lot back. So, I have to tell my bias on that. My mother was a teacher for many, many years. My daughter's a teacher. My first cousin's a teacher. My aunt was a teacher. The public school system is the foundation of democracy in our country. It brings everybody together. Everybody's supposed to be equal in our system. And the reason we have the public schools is because in England, which we came away from, they had the rich went to the very exclusive schools, and everybody else, if they got to school, went to a lower funded school. Mm-hmm. So I feel it's important to fund education. The lottery was supposed to do that around in Wisconsin as well as other states, but the money was funneled off to other areas. But we have to, I think it's a question of how do we fully utilize the money, and we're not utilizing the money properly, in my opinion. We saw all in the news a couple weeks ago, the child in Oklahoma who had the same textbook as Blake Shelton did 20 years ago. So, if students are having old books like that, maybe it's time we relook at how we're educating our students. Our educational system is based on a model from the 1800s, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and things like that. But there are a lot of children that are going much faster than their grade peers, and we should find a way to allow them to do that. I've always been a proponent of the Montessori method of education that allows a child to go as fast as they want in a subject that they really like. We need to bring in more technology. We have students that are on their phones or on their computers, on video games, and then they get in front of a teacher for 6 hours a day and they're bored because they're not getting the stimulation. So I think we should look at ways to incorporate technology to make the teacher's job more effective and also allow students to go at their pace. And that way a teacher can see if someone's going too fast, for instance, in math, maybe they can say, well, now spend some time on science or now spend some time on English. Mm-hmm. Currently, teachers spend about 80% of their time on the bottom 20%, which hurts the bright students. And so using better use of technology in our schools takes away a need for buying textbooks every few years, and we can have one program. Math doesn't change over the next 20 years. Arithmetic is still arithmetic. There are certain things that can be done with technology. My daughter teaches physics and chemistry at high school level, and she puts her lessons online on Facebook. So if a student misses it or doesn't understand a concept, they can go back and look at it. And I think we have to look at more ways to utilize technology to allow teachers to be more efficient and more effective.
The choice program, the voucher programs, started, as you know, in the city of Milwaukee, then it was expanded to Racine, and now it's statewide. Should it continue to be expanded?
My fear about those schools is that it takes away local control. If a parent has a problem with the teacher, they can talk to the teacher. And if the problem is not resolved, they can talk to the principal. And if they feel the problem still hasn't been resolved, they can bring it to their local school board. And if it's still not resolved, they can run for school board and have an impact on the decisions that are made for their child's education. My fear with some of these schools is that they're run by large corporations, and you're going to get the same customer service like you get from the cable company, which is not very good. And when you look at the corporations that own some of these schools, I have to question some motives. Are they trying to make new consumers for their products, for other companies' products? But the basic idea of local control is what made our schools strong and getting people involved in their children's education. So I think it's very important that we take a look at public education and how can we make it better. Studies have shown that the voucher and charter schools really don't do that much of a better job than the public schools. So why do we need two principals in the same town or two guidance counselors? It doesn't make sense to me. And it also has an us versus them mentality. Again, the public school system is the bedrock of our democracy.
Do you support continuing the tuition freeze for resident undergrad in the UW system?
I'm not sure at this point. I'd have to look at their books and see what do we need. If the school needs money, I'm a proponent for education, then we have to look at what is the right amount, and if the freeze is right for now, then we have to look at that. I'm not totally familiar with their books to say, is it justified or not?
Do we need bills that would fix what's been called the dark store controversy, where at issue is how you appraise closed stores versus open stores and restaurants and banks?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so, and here's why. Appraisal on any level, whether it be commercial or real estate appraisal, is more of an art rather than a science. If you're buying a house, of course, you look at comparable sales, yes, which is only really good if you're in a subdivision of very similar houses. We had an appraisal done on our house, and it's an old farmhouse, and there's nothing like it on the market. So the appraiser has to take a look at similar houses and make certain adjustments. My house is not appraised a little bit higher because I run a business out of it. It's based on square footage, it's based on the appliances, it's based on the condition. If a person is owning a commercial building and the taxes are too high and it's still vacant, well, maybe they should lower their rent to get somebody in. And if it's still too high, then sell it. Then the new buyer can take a look at the appraisal and then perhaps go to court or and fight that appraisal based on market value.
Does the state need to make any changes in health care? I know it's a huge national issue, but should the state make any changes in health care?
Well, you know, we all remember that Mitt Romney, who was governor of Massachusetts, ushered in a single-payer program in Massachusetts. This was a Republican idea in Massachusetts that got overwhelming support in the state of Massachusetts. People say they're against socialized medicine. I'll put the air quotes on that. But they don't have a problem with the VA, which is a similar socialized medicine type of program. They don't have a problem with Medicare. The problem is labeling. I was talking to a couple when I was getting signatures, and a conservative couple, mm-hmm, and the older folks, and the husband said, well, I'd never heard an idea from the Democrats that I liked, but he's living on Social Security and Medicare. So I guess we get too wrapped up in labels and not how do we fix things. Healthcare is an issue. We need healthy people. The question is, how do we pay for it? I think at some point there will be national health care because it just makes sense. We look at the profits that the pharmaceutical companies are making. Even President Trump said recently that he's going to go after the pharmaceutical companies, and he's a conservative Republican. When you have that pharma bro guy that increases a pill from whatever it was to $5,000 a pill.
Martin Schreckle.
Right. We're being taken advantage of by, when I say we, the populace, taken advantage by these gouging companies that just jack up their prices on life-saving medication. It cannot continue.
Okay, and my final question, do you want to contrast you as an independent with the Democrat and Republican candidates?
I've met the candidates the other day at the Lodi Optimist Club, and I think all the candidates bring to the table a lot of experience and some good ideas. The difference I have is that I'm not bound to a party line. I want to work across the aisle, back and forth. I don't have an aisle if I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I like the good ideas. And as I said up front, no one party has a monopoly on all the good ideas. So the biggest difference is, and I think people are tired of the fighting of Democrats and Republicans. A couple years ago, I heard former Governor Jesse Ventura speak in an interview. I don't agree with everything he says, but he said something that was very important that stuck with me. He said that anybody running for public office should not have a D or an R after their name. They should have an I, independent. And that would force the voting public to actually listen to who's running and what their views are, rather than just saying, I'm a Democrat, I'm voting Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm voting Republican, but actually listen to what the candidate says and where their positions are, and I think we would have a better democracy that way.
Thank you. Gene Rubinstein of Pardeeville is an independent candidate in the special election in the 42nd Assembly District. The primary is May 15th. The general election is June 12th. Mr. Rubinstein, thanks for coming to Wisconsin.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
it.
Thank you.